Hello, everybody. We love the original Roadhouse. We watch it twice a year, once a year at least.
I actually haven't watched it for years. You're speaking for yourself here.
What?
You are, yeah. You've just assumed this on me.
I just looked at you, yeah, and I know it has Terry Funk in it, so I just assumed that you watch it religiously.
After watching this newest one, I actually think if I get a chance, I'm going to go back tonight and rewatch the original.
It made me want to watch the original as well, but then everything does. Yeah, so we're here today to review Roadhouse 2024, the Amazon and MGM Studios remake of the original with Patrick Swayze, which we love. This time it's Jake Gyllenhaal, who we also love. Well, I do. Again, I'm assuming. Nightcrawler, one of my favorite movies of all time. Fantastic actor. He can also get in shape for these kind of roles. So leading up to this, just everything, original producer, everything just looked like this is just going to be a dead cert, and we were hyped, right?
Dude, today I actually watched a video of how he got in shape for this movie.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think it was by Men's Health, and it was showing all this sort of functional training he was doing, and it looked really cool. But they made a real point of being like, he's doing this natural. And I thought, I'm not so sure about that. How old is he?
I mean, he's getting on, right? He's got to be in his 40s.
Right.
Now,
I don't think you can be that lean and that much muscle in your 40s naturally.
So studios or media mouthpieces, they say things that they think fans want to hear. So many things say, oh, this stunt was done without CGI, and it just isn't true. They just know that people nowadays are like, oh, I don't want any CGI, I want the real deal, which I guess I'm kind of guilty of as well. Same for this. It's like, oh no steroids, just want to be natty, just working out good old fashioned. No one nowadays is going to, especially Hollywood actors, going to say, oh, no, I roided up and too old.
Well, no, they're not going to say that. They're just going to say, what, chicken, rice, and broccoli. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But he did look phenomenal.
He looked good. And he's basically indistinguishable from me, right, today. I've got my open shirt.
Well, that was his outfit for the whole movie. Just those shirts. Very unassuming. But
let's just get straight into it. One thing that's kind of important to note is that we are not going to, I don't think it'd be fair to compare too much to what this movie doesn't have compared to the original. I think I kind of want to just do it based on its own merits as much as possible, because of course we will be comparing a movie that has Terry Funk in it to a movie that doesn't have Terry Funk in it, which is just not fair, right?
It's not.
Okay, so the movie opens and straight away it's in a fight pit, an unsanctioned fight club thing. And this woman goes to the bar there and asks this guy, I think he was called Carter, who's the guy played by Post Malone, who beats everybody up, right? And then this new guy enters the pit with his hood up. And when Carter sees who it is, he kind of folds and walks away. So the new guy gets all of the fight money. He wins by TKO, right? You could say. The new guy is our hero. And we will get to that. Dalton, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. So same name as the original character. This time they're trying to update it a bit by, he's not just some mystical kung fu bouncer who's really strong, philosophical bouncer who's really strong. We'll get to this, but the new one is a disgraced UFC fighter. Fine, cool opening. I liked it. Somebody stabs him outside for losing this better, his fight money, his betting money. And Jake Gyllenhaal, Dalton, just ignores it and gingerly provides aid for himself in the back of his car. So immediately I kind of got annoyed. I was like, okay, so it's going to be one of these kind of movies. And by that, I mean, I came in expecting a realistic and grounded update. And this is just clearly, there's no threats because knives don't matter, right?
I thought that. I'm like, are we going down the supernatural already?
Right. Yeah. Straight away.
He got stabbed, and it was like one of the most recent Halloween movies where he was just getting stabbed and killed by 20 people, but just completely fine.
Right. Yeah. So straight away, that kind of. Yeah. Me too. Okay. And that was disappointing, but I was still willing to move on. But there's actually loads of kind of superhero, as you call it, or fantasy, unbelievable, poorly written and conceived parts, including a lot of the dialogue and characterization attempts. And we'll get to those. I'm just trying to set up the initial conceit of the movie. So the woman asking at the bar, Frankie, asks Dalton for him now instead of Carter, because it turns out she just wants security at her Florida Keys Roadhouse. She needs a bouncer. So she offers him $20K for a month's work. He takes her number, okay, because he doesn't have a cell phone, and then deliberately stops his car on the train track. So immediately you dislike him, like totally selfish, totally stupid. And what I just thought was, okay, so what made today of all days, after he got paid and a guaranteed job offer, made him choose that day to stop on the train tracks, as opposed to like yesterday or the day before? Just
no, maybe that was his plan, but then because she gave him her number, he decided not to go through with it, because he does try to pull out of it last second.
Yeah, but if that was his plan anyway for the day, why would his plan before then be earn some money?
That part I didn't understand.
You know, so there's a lot of things like this that doesn't really make sense. That's just the initial setup. Then he drives to Florida Keys, and that's nighttime. The first daytime shots.
He takes the Greyhound to Florida Keys. He's got no car.
Yeah, sorry, he takes the Greyhound to the Florida Keys, and then the first like daytime shots you see, I don't know if you noticed this, just like the picture was incredibly grainy. And I thought that they did it in post or something to make it seem grittier, but I looked up the camera they used for the shoot, and apparently it's like a naturally grainy, like baked in ISO grain. It's a 6K camera, the red Komodo. You've probably heard of the red cameras. You'd expect something better for a major movie than a 6K camera body. But
are they trying to keep it in line with the original, maybe?
No, because the original was filmed on actual film and it looks good. Like it still looks good today. And
it's funny because your camera right now has got all grainy as you're talking about this.
Really? Okay, well, that's perfect, because also my camera, because it's just a crappy little webcam, it's actually not so bad now, but at the start was super blown out because of the sun. In this movie as well, it was very high contrast. Sometimes their faces were just, half their faces were just pure white, like very white whites and very like crushed blacks. It just almost looked like, you know, when on YouTube, and I'm not criticizing these people, but they have a consumer grade DSLR camera and they want to make like a cinematic movie. It's like, oh, look what you can do with consumer quality gear. It looked kind of like that, an entire movie. And I was kind of shocked. And there's a part later on where our big bad guy, and I say big bad guy in quote marks, he's chewing. Did you notice when he's chewing that guy out for making the hammock? And it's this long shot, like the white balance just goes haywire in the camera and then corrects itself. And they just kept that in. It looked like, you know, when you're watching something on streaming and you get poor connection quality and it kind of reverts to SD and then it kicks in HD again.
Sure.
You see that. I thought it was that initially, but no, it was some weird thing in the camera and they just kept it in. So there's a lot of like technical woes and issues in this. It was just very kind of distracting.
I noticed that a tiny bit during the fight at the start with Post Malone, which part of that fight scene for sure had some kind of CGI effect to it. It was kind of odd, but I felt like
I think what they do is they digitally move the actors closer, so the the hits like they connected, and they've done that. Like they did that in the Star Wars episode on the Phantom Menace. That kind of doesn't bother me because obviously you don't want to see a foot gap, but there was something there where the technique obviously makes sense to do, but I feel like the execution of that was a little bit off in this movie. And when Conor McGregor headbutts Jake Gyllenhaal, in the close-up scene as well, just it seems a little off, and it just makes you kind of note. It just stands out. You think, oh, something is off, and you can't really put your finger on it. But there's plenty of that. Another technical thing that I thought was weird is straight after he gets off the Greyhound, when he's looking for directions for the Roadhouse, he speaks to this young lady, Charlie, to get directions. And you see when she responds to where the Roadhouse is, there's some pretty severe ADR because what she says in her mouth doesn't sync. And then once the audio of her speaking stops, her mouth is still going. And I was like, okay, that's strange. I haven't seen that since Madame Web. I saw that in Madame Web as well. So lazy ADR, I don't know what that's all about nowadays, but that's all the rage. But there's also some good as well. But what I'm trying to establish is this is clearly not like a realistic. This is like they're going for okay, this is just fun trash. No, they don't care that much, and that's absolutely fine. I just want to set the scene for people who haven't seen it yet.
Well, I just want to say for people that haven't seen it, you've done a pretty good job explaining. But essentially, what I gathered is that he was a UFC fighter that ended up killing someone in the octagon because he didn't stop when he was told to stop. He kept punching the guy. So now he's like, as you put it, disgraced, probably cancelled, everything else. Right. And his kind of life has gone down the toilet. Then he ends up getting hired to be a bouncer for this Roadhouse, which for whatever reason, well, they kind of explain it, keeps getting attacked every single night, people coming to the Roadhouse to trash it. And we find out later it's because this millionaire family want to buy the land, I think. Is that what it is? Yes.
To put up a new development, yeah.
And they don't want to sell it. So that's kind of what it is. It's also obviously worth noting, this is the acting debut of Conor McGregor. And I believe he is the highest paid first-time actor of all time. Beat The Rock, who did Scorpion King. I think, how much did Conor McGregor get paid for this?
So I think The Rock got 5.5 and Conor got 6. So he got $6 million to play himself, which is just the best deal ever. I would have.
Well, I was getting that, 6. Yeah, I mean, if he got inflation, The Rock's might be higher. But
I was thinking that actually. Yeah, you're right.
So Conor McGregor, what did you think of him in it? You just said plays himself. I was thinking that when I was driving to the gym earlier, felt like Conor McGregor essentially played a more sort of cartoony version of himself, pretty much.
Incredibly cartoony. He's supposed to be like the big henchman, like fixer. Now, my problems with him, so his portrayal, like he's not an actor. He's obviously not going to be the best actor in the world, but he didn't phone it in. He was chewing the scenery and cartoony. He walks around like Popeye, you know? So like, it was absolutely fine. It was a little bit distracting, but what I thought of is they're trying to paint him like this quirky, like, he's a scary guy, but he's also kind of quirky and dandy. And I just thought we only just saw this have you seen Fast 10? Jason Momoa's character in Fast 10. It's basically the same character.
Okay, yeah.
So I was like, I've already seen it. But I actually kind of enjoyed Conor McGregor in this. I couldn't possibly imagine if there was like another, like a Roadhouse 2, seeing his character again. Like it's like a one and done.
One and done.
I'm done. Like I've had my fill. But it was okay for this. Again, if they were going that realistic route, it wouldn't have worked at all with him. But they're going for this unrealistic, cartoony route. So having a larger than life henchman played by Conor McGregor is just absolutely acceptable, in my opinion. What do you reckon?
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect with Conor McGregor. It felt like a very safe part for him, very safe. And like, he pretty much had the same expression on his face the whole entire time, this smile on his big grin. And there was a bunch of different one-liners in this film, both from him and from our main character, Dalton, which felt a little cheesy and a little misplaced. Overall, I just feel like you said it was made with it was obviously on Amazon, right? It felt like an Amazon movie. I feel like I haven't seen a movie, like a new movie in years that's really made my brain think at all. It felt very much like one of those, like you said, you put it on, just mindless fight scenes, a few explosions. It's an easy watch, but it doesn't really get any deeper than that. And it's so bizarre, I feel, in this day and age, how these TV series they make for things like Netflix and Amazon Prime can be so in-depth and so good and really get your brain to think and everything. But movies seem very much like, almost like they feel like we made this in sixth form or something. Do you know what I mean? Like the plot and everything else.
Which again, like, isn't a bad thing. Like, it is an action movie remake of the 80s classic. Like, you don't really have to think, but it's more like the way it was constructed is more brain dead than the plot itself. Yeah.
Well,
it's a very strange thing.
I feel like the characters, we didn't really have a very in-depth look into the characters, and they kind of had this backstory of Dalton having kind of PTSD from killing the guy, but we never really got further in that. I felt like they really shoehorned the romance or the relationship with I can't even remember her name, Ellie. So it felt like we saw her in 2 scenes and then they were making out, and it was I was kind of like, okay, that seems a little random. But like, I would say that the start of the movie, that sort of very Fight Club-esque scene, I thought, okay, cool. And I assumed this movie was going to be very gritty and everything else.
Yes.
A little bit difficult as they're on the Florida Keys, obviously, as in the sunshine. And just a lot of plot. You definitely have to suspend your disbelief. Because also I was thinking, if these guys are coming to this bar every night and smashing it up and beating everyone up, how come this place is still packed every single night, right? They could have at least explained that maybe. Just stuff like that I thought, was hard to believe, or fight scenes going on and the band in the bar continue playing, but no real explanation. To me,
the band in the bar playing throughout the shenanigans reminded me of, I wondered if that was like a send up of, from Dusk Till Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if it was like, I wonder if they got inspiration from that. But the thing is, from Dusk Till Dawn is a vampire comedy crime movie. That's kind of the difference.
I feel like also with our main character, Dalton, we never really have chance to have sympathy for him or anything else. They have this backstory of him killing, I think they said it was someone he was friends with in the UFC. And we see it, he loses control, he's punching him, they ring the bell, but he continues to punch him, even though the referee's trying to drag him off.
Eventually.
The only explanation we really get for that is he says that he can't control his anger, but we don't know why he can't control his anger. So there's no real reason to feel any sympathy for him.
I don't really want to have any sympathy for him based on his actions.
He got stabbed at the beginning and was like, I'm fine, and taped it up. So it's kind of like, well, we don't really, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah. I'm talking about his actions, though. So, for example, he's hired to protect this bar, and he just waits until all hell breaks loose before bothering. Like, so much damage, so much property damage, just so much violence, and he just barely steps in. Now, Dalton in the original was calm, but like in a zen, or slow, but like in a zen way. He's just not like he doesn't react rashly. So, but like that's zen. Dalton in the remake is calm, but in a psychotic way. Now, you can decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Again, I didn't want to compare this to the original too much. It's just a different take, clearly. But I don't really feel like I want to. Again, I talked about Nightcrawler. You're not supposed to sympathize with the psycho, right? So I'm not even sure I even wanted to. And again, we mentioned just how they downplay knives. So two men fighting in a bar is one thing, but the moment somebody pulls out a knife and tries to stab the other one, now it's attempted murder territory. Stakes are different. But the so-called bouncer says to a waiter at the bar, that guy has a knife, why don't you take care of it? And just tells him how to do it. Like, at that point, like, I don't want, and this guy sucks. He absolutely sucks. No, you mentioned, we mentioned how everything didn't look great and was kind of unrealistic. But one thing that I felt like did look good and was semi-realistic was their parts in the UFC, like the portrayal of the UFC. I thought they looked good and felt good. What do you reckon? Well,
apparently they filmed it at a UFC event, which would make sense. So that's cool. Yeah, I felt like that definitely looked good, actually. Thinking about it, it did.
I actually think that was probably that and the fight at the start with Post Malone. I know there was the issues that you mentioned, but just generally that kind of tone, I felt like those two parts were like better than the main part, which is the Florida Keys part. Yeah,
I was going to say that the fight scenes as a whole were kind of just, I don't know. Okay. I felt like you said, I feel like they started quite entertaining, and then it's just kind of, I felt like the explosions and fire and everything else and the boat going flying towards the end, that to me felt very forced and just wasn't necessary really for the film. It felt like they were just like, we want to make a big Hollywood blockbuster with lots of special effects and stunts and everything else. I don't personally feel like they needed it to tell this story. I don't know. It just, honestly, just overall, I felt like for a 2-hour movie, it was relatively mindless entertainment. I wasn't offended by it. Would I ever watch it again? Most likely not. That was pretty much the impression I got from the movie as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. There was controversy about it not being released at the theaters. If I went to the theater to watch this, I would have been pretty disappointed. I'm glad it was only on Prime. And here's the reality is, if you're watching or listening to this and you have Amazon Prime, just go watch it. There's no reason not to. Watch it once, like Marty said. If you don't have Amazon Prime, this is not worth seeking out. You're not going to miss anything, really. But you might as well, if you have the access to it, just check it out once and just see how you think. Again, it's like Marty said, it's mindless entertainment. It's kind of fine. It's kind of fun, actually, in a way. But it's just no more than that. And I kind of expected more from Amazon with their remakes, because I don't know if you saw their Suspiria remake from like 2018 with Dakota Johnson in it. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It blew me away at how good it was. So I went in with like high hopes. It's like, okay, so Amazon and Jim, like they will handle this. Like, we've got this. And it just wasn't that. So that's that's my fault, I guess, to a certain degree, like the expectations. But it was fine. There's just, again, some very weird characterization as well. So our the big bad guy, is just, I don't know if you've seen The Big Short. He's the kid who sets up Mark to go see the stripper. And he's not just the same actor, he's the same character, basically, just like this Florida douchebag. That's not scary. And he's introduced where he's on the back of a boat getting like a straight razor shave. And it's like, if he was a psycho like Jason Momoa in Fast X, like we talked about, it's like, oh, wow, yeah. The dichotomy of this wonky boat like out at sea and the precision needed for a straight razor. Oh, he's got to be a psycho, right? First of all, that's kind of lame anyway. But the thing is, he's not a psycho. He's just a rich kid. So he's just like an idiot, like a dumb idiot. And he's your main bad guy.
Right.
So there was just like problems with the conflict as well. There's a biker gang who caused trouble at the start. One of them is Arturo Castro. I don't know if you know who that is. He had this sketch show called Alternatino on Comedy Central, and he's like a really funny guy. He's the one that gets his arm up in a cast.
Yeah, I know.
He's a really funny guy, but like silly funny. And he's in this, he literally plays one of his Alternatino characters, like literally responding to rhetoricals and stuff like that. And just like, if he's supposed to be in a bike ride, it just creates this unrealistic tone. So this place is all over the place. Now, I really don't have much more to say about this. It was very predictable. Like, as soon as you see the sheriff, like the main cop, you know it's going to be Ellie's dad. Right. I don't know about you, but I was like, well, they're going to turn out to be related, right? And it's like, oh God. One thing I wanted to say was, again, we praised like the UFC parts. That flashback of Dalton, like killing his friend in the UFC. And like we said, the look of it all is quite realistic, but I couldn't help but think, for maximum realism, the referee who's just standing there while the already KO'd guy's getting his head repeatedly pounded in should have been played by Mario Yamasaki. What do you reckon?
Why?
Well, because he just sits there and lets people get their heads pounded in.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh, if he dies, he dies. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't really have much more to say. I've got a couple of Lookalikies. I don't know how you're going to respond to these. They may suck, they may not. So let's give that a go.
Go on.
And then we should probably wrap this up because there's really not a lot to say about this movie. And that is one thing that you can say about it, is that there's actually not much to say. Some people might enjoy that, find it refreshing. With so many movies nowadays, like there's the multi-universes, it's all convoluted.
Right.
Some people might just want this, and that's absolutely fine. For me, I kind of expected a little more, but maybe that's partly my problem there.
Do you see Conor McGregor doing more movies?
Honestly,
play the same character.
I feel like he's going to be in movies now, just playing himself for a good couple of years. And fair play, like, milk it if you're here, milk it, fair play. But for me, I probably won't be seeking them out. Now, this is the sheriff. He's also in Fast 5, if you remember Fast 5. He is the sheriff, bad cop, now who's the father of the nurse. I feel like he looks like Jeffrey Rush from The King's Speech. What do you reckon? Brazilian Jeffrey Rush?
I could see that, yeah. I could definitely see similarities.
Okay, that was my strongest one. He looks more like Jeremy Clarkson.
He does that.
That was my strongest one, so it's only downhill from here. I feel like Ellie, the love interest, they make out on the beach and then disappear, would make a good if they made a movie of Far Cry 6. The main character Danny Rojas from Far Cry 6. Yeah. What do you reckon? Same haircut?
Best picture over there, but yeah, I guess I could see
unfortunately, this is the only still that I could find of her with her hair up in the top. The rest, this is the most convincing picture I have for my case. And you're like, well, it wasn't the best picture. But that's all we have.
She was in Suicide Squad, huh?
And she was, yes,
Fast
she was.
And everything, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It did just feel like a Netflix movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Amazon, but yeah.
Or for better or worse.
A lot of the Hollywood movies in this day and age kind of feel like this. Just stories that didn't really need to be told. Just kind of, there's no real depth to the story. Just kind of, you get to see cool actors, big stars, fight scenes, special effects. That's it, right?
I hope this. No, I totally agree. I hope this actually is successful and people do like it, and then it will make them take the chance for other kind of remakes for things that may not have originally got one, and like eventually one of them they'll knock out of the park. So I'm like hoping this is a good thing, but yeah, for me it was nothing more than what you basically just said. Just
people are very sort of sensitive to remaking old movies or classics or films they love. Like, are you all for it for them doing remakes? And some people like leave the film alone, never do a remake. But I feel like if they do a remake and it's no good, it doesn't really hurt the original. Does it? So
no, I don't really have a problem with remakes in that regard. Again, the Suspiria remake is one of my favorite horror movies. It's completely different to the original. It's more like a cover, like a reimagining. It's very good. And they both just sit firmly like on their own merit, and that's perfect. This Roadhouse one is more like a modern update, like a flash in the pan, glitzy update of a movie we've already watched with some differences. So I don't really feel like it offered or needed or gave us anything that we haven't really had before. Totally. And again, some people might just want to get home from work and watch Conor McGregor and Jake Gyllenhaal beat each other up. And you get that. And so it's just two topless guys beating each other up in a bar for about 15 minutes at the end. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was fine. I just feel like given the two, I would watch the original Suspiria one day and then the remake another. Given the chance, given the option with this, I'll just always pick the original. I don't really feel like it added anything new. It was just a flash in the pan remake. Nothing wrong with that. I'm sure people will enjoy it. It was fun. We'll take this home now.
It was a cash cow. It was a cash cow.
Yeah. And that's fine, you know.
What star rating would you give the movie?
That's difficult because I'll tell you, I'd say it's a 2 out of 5, but that doesn't really reflect. Again, if you have access to it and you're already watching this, just watch the friggin' movie. It's going to be more than a 2 out of 5 for you in that 2 hours when you're watching it. But then afterwards, you're going to forget it. But yeah, I'm not going to watch this ever again. What about you? I feel like 2 out of 5 is actually kind of a little bit generous, but I do want to kind of be generous to this movie.
I feel like 2 out of 5 is fair. I think that's more than fair.
Yeah. Okay, then.
It wasn't a bad movie.
No, it wasn't. It just didn't offer us anything. Yeah. It had some weird decisions, bad characterization, terrible dialogue. We have a dialogue about there's henchmen in the car talking about whittling. It seems like video game script dialogue. Oh,
it did actually. It's a good way of putting
we need quirky characters. Like, why does every henchman or every person need to be quirky? Back in the 80s, the characters just shut up. How much dialogue did Terry Funk have? In the original, right? Hardly any.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Yeah. But, we watched it and All right, well, I'd love to hear what the people listening to this thought. So if you watched it, if you enjoyed it, maybe you didn't enjoy it, let us know in the comments or hit us up on the Instagram or the social media as a whole at The Villain Pod. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Indeed. Yeah. Check it out if you already have Amazon Prime and nothing to do. Otherwise, give it a miss. That's my summary. But thank you very much, guys, for listening/watching, and we'll see you next time.